Poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare.
You know what? If I ever cry on TV, it'll be because Maroon 5 put out a new song. But that's it. You big.
You know it's getting embarrassing when Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld show up like the savage duo no one asked for. But everyone's watching. This wasn't a debate. It was a tag team takedown aimed squarely at Jimmy Kimmel's inflated ego. Forget Thanos. This time, the real villain is primetime arrogance. Jimmy, dressed in a blazer and a fake smile, was left clinging to his punchlines like a toddler with a security blanket. You could see the panic behind those over-rehearsed smirks, like he'd just realized that sarcasm alone wasn't going to save him from the fire scorching his once smug legacy.
In the day when I was on the prime time of Fox and you were on the prime time of CNN, a couple of hours after our shows ended, late night comics would come on, and they occasionally would make us laugh, Piers. I mean, occasionally they understood that they were in the game of making everyone laugh. As you know, they've abandoned that game now, and they're just political operatives out there. Colbert, Kimmel, Seth Meyer, who I struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute. I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought bubble out.
This wasn't just a burn. It was a televised ego collapse, and the audience couldn't get enough. Let's be honest. Jimmy Kimmel isn't doing comedy anymore. He's delivering emotional lectures with a teleprompter. Picture your school principal during a fire drill, trying to crack jokes. More self-importance, zero charm. He's not telling jokes. He's issuing moral warnings, like America's perpetually disappointed stepdad. And the irony? It's wild. This is the same guy who built his brand on beer pong challenges and bikini contests. Now he's positioning himself as some heroic truth-teller, bravely holding the line for humanity, while sipping overpriced lattes and side-eyeing anyone who doesn't quote Bernie Sanders like gospel. If smugness had a scent, Jimmy would be its poster child. Soy latte in hand, judgment locked and loaded. What we're witnessing isn't just a roast. It's a slow-motion unraveling of a man who forgot he was supposed to be funny. And lucky us, we've all got front row seats to the show.
All right. So a Republican has won an election, and you know what that means. Jimmy Carter has to stay alive for 4 more years. It's also time for liberals to tell themselves that they're still right about everything and their hysteria and delusions of persecution are perfectly normal. Yet right now, they're melting like that stick of butter Joy Behar keeps between her thighs to prevent chafing. Case in point, last night, all the other late-night hosts threw a hissy fit. It's too bad Tim Walz is still grieving, or he could send them all a sack of industrial-strength tampons.
Jimmy Kimmel isn't afraid of monsters under bed, unless they're registered Republicans. But let's be real. The true horror story isn't political. It's what late night has become with Jimmy at the helm. This isn't comedic evolution. It's a desperate rebrand. Picture a washed-up boy band stars strumming sad songs on a thrift store guitar while live-streaming vegan lasagna recipes on Instagram. Yeah, it's that level of cringe. Night after night, like clockwork, Jimmy lumbers out a comedy graveyard with another limp monologue that lands with the impact of soggy napkin, dull, predictable, and painfully optional. This isn't stand-up anymore. It's sit down and sulk. He stopped chasing punchlines and started fishing for clapdoor, applause for safe, agreeable opinions rather than laughter for bold, risky humor. Late Night's been downgraded to a televised Tumblr diary from 2015. Hashtag activism, zero punch. Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't just roast him. They bulldozed through the bubble. They stormed his echo chamber with no chill, held up a mirror, and basically said, asterisk this? This is what you become? Asterisk, and honestly, it was long overdue.
We took a look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine.
This is what happens when jokes get cleared by corporate HR before they ever hit the mic. It's not satire anymore. It's sanitized outrage. All the edge of a Pinterest quote, with a laugh track slapped on top. Jimmy Kimmel isn't a comedian these days. He's a motivational Facebook ant with studio lighting. And audiences, they're already halfway to the remote. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld walks in, drops 5 seconds of raw, unscripted chaos, and somehow it hits harder than 5 entire Kimmel episodes combined. He didn't just outshine Jimmy, he wiped the floor with him. Gutfeld didn't even need to aim high. When someone's already face-planted over their own fading relevance, why bother climbing? Watching him pick Jimmy apart felt like poking a hole in an inflatable clown, quick, clean, and oddly satisfying. Jimmy walks around thinking he's clever because he sprinkles an irony. But what's the point if the audience feels like they're being graded after every punchline? Every Kimmel segment feels like that one group project nightmare. The guy who did nothing but insists on giving the final presentation. Loud, confusing, packed with charts that somehow make less sense the longer you look. It's like he's chasing awards and most annoying PowerPoint, instead of actual laughs.
Late night host Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after taking the summer off. He's missed a lot. Kimmel says if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get a hospital ICU bed. But I'm not sure if Jimmy was being sincere because he wasn't crying. Anyway, it's just funny hearing someone say I see you who nobody actually sees. Look, I don't want to suggest that Kimmel's show has become boring and predictable, but last night during the taping, people in the studio audience were changing the channel.
And then came Megyn Kelly. No theatrics, no fluff. Just a surgical takedown that cut deeper than any punchline Jimmy Kimmel's dropped in years. She didn't need props or raised voices. She calmly walked in and reminded everyone what time it is. And spoiler alert, Jimmy's clock is way off. She exposed him for what he really is. Not bold, not brave, not deep. Just another late-night host clinging to relevance, pretending to be America's moral compass, while cashing massive Disney checks under LED lighting like that somehow qualifies as rebellion. Let's not forget, this is the same guy who once thought reading mean tweets out loud was revolutionary comedy. The same guy who cried his way through national policy debates, mistaking emotional outbursts for civic leadership. Now, night after night, he sits draped in performative concern like it's a superhero cape, silently begging the country to thank him for feeling things. Give us a break. Let's talk about Kimmel's so-called transformation, or as his PR team insists on spinning it, growth. Once upon a time, he was a dude in the leather jacket, cracking beer jokes, pulling stunts, and acting like your wild card uncle at Thanksgiving. Fast forward to now, and he's wrapped in moral superiority like a luxury spa robe, scolding anyone who doesn't echo his NPR-approved worldview. This isn't growth, it's a costume change. He didn't evolve, he pivoted. No longer edgy, no longer rebellious. He's basically the substitute teacher who caught a kid doodling Trump in the back row and now won't shut up about teachable moments for the rest of the semester. It's not evolution. It's a tired rebrand, and a boring one at that.
You know how much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel. That's what they're getting now. Tucker's numbers were 3 times what Jimmy Kimmel gets. And Tucker's little basement video that he did from clearly like his cabin that he broadcasts out of Maine in literally has 21 million views. Okay, 21 million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults because he looks a little...
Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld's approach to comedy is like a steel-toe boot to the face of hypocrisy. No filters, no fluff, no HR-approved monologues. Just raw, uncut satire that actually punches up and lands. It's sharp, it's abrasive, and it reminds you what late night used to be before it turned into a resume builder for MSNBC guest spots. While Jimmy Kimmel performs morality plays in an echo chamber funded by Hollywood guilt, Gutfeld connects. He cracks real jokes, the kind that hit nerve endings, not just check buzzword off a script. And here's the wild part. His audience laughs. Genuinely. No clapdoor, no pity applause, just actual reactions from people who showed up for comedy. Compare that to Jimmy's crowd. It's a hostage situation where everyone's clapping because someone's holding up a sign that says, asterisk, pretend it's funny. Astra's a vibe is less late-night show and more group therapy session, and even the therapy sucks. Let's be honest. This is the same guy who used to wear a gorilla suit while interviewing bikini models. Now he wants to be taken seriously as the conscience of the nation? Please. The issue isn't even political anymore. It's cultural. Jimmy Kimmel is the safest rebel on television. Nothing raw, nothing risky, just rebellion pre-approved by HR and stamped with a Disney logo. Watching him is like seeing a punk band sell out and drop a soft rock album about climate change, wearing pastel sweaters. He thinks he's punching up, but really, he's swinging in the dark, hoping Twitter tosses him a few pity likes.
Poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
And Megyn Kelly? She zoomed in with sniper precision. She didn't just throw shade. She dismantled the illusion. Jimmy Kimmel's entire act is built on this fake image of bravery. Like he's risking it all by mocking people he disagrees with from inside a multi-million-dollar studio, surrounded by corporate approval and media applause. That's not courage. It's just expensive cosplay. He's not edgy. He's performing emotional stagecraft. Every time a policy shifts or a sad headline trends, there he is. Cue the trembling voice, the dramatic pause, the on-cue tear. It's clockwork at this point. Jimmy cries on air more than reality show contestants, and somehow always from the perfect camera angle. You could practically set your DVR to his breakdowns. And those tears? They're not raw. They're rehearsed. At this point, his tear ducts probably have a publicist. His sorrow hits harder when it's backed by soft piano music and a sponsor logo. It's not about authentic emotion. It's about making sure every sniffle gets clipped, captioned, and trending. Greg Gutfeld nailed it. Forget hiring more writers. Jimmy needs an intervention. Someone has to tell him, just because you feel something doesn't mean we all need to endure 10 minutes of mood lighting, HD close-ups, and scripted sadness. Enough already. Kimmel's entire show feels like one long, awkward therapy session, except with one stuck on the couch. Night after night, he pours out his unresolved guilt and expects America to nod along like it's part of our cable package. This isn't late night anymore. It's emotional baggage in a suit neatly packaged between commercial breaks.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Several people shared in this achievement. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the fourth time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times he's second only to Justin Trudeau in his fondness for the practice. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel.
While Jimmy Kimmel scrambles to outpace internet culture by over-explaining the headlines, his audience is quietly tapping out. Turns out, no one's lining up to be guilt-tripped by a millionaire who thinks he's Moses with a monologue. His God complex now outweighs his jokes, and his punchlines are dropping faster than his ratings. At this rate, he'll be doing 5-minute stand-up sets between hummus samples of Whole Foods, right next to the climate change sign-up sheet. And let's talk about the writing. His writers look like they've mentally checked out. The jokes land with the impact of a feather hitting a couch. No heat, no edge, just recycled gags reheated like last week's Hot Pocket. You can almost hear the studio audience sigh every time another half-hearted, Republicans bad joke limps across the screen. It's not edgy. It's exhausting. His delivery has all the spark of a passive-aggressive TED Talk aimed at preschoolers. And then there's Megyn Kelly. She's not clapping. She's not buying it. She came for truth, not theatrics, and she said what everyone else is thinking. Jimmy isn't edgy. He's market-tested rebellion. Dissent, but brand safe. He's not the class clown. He's a kid who tattled, then wrote a unity essay for the school newsletter. And the worst part? He expects applause for it. Even the way he tells jokes now feels like a parody of himself. He leans into the camera like he's about to spill national secrets, whispering punchlines like they're classified intel. But instead of landing laughs, it feels like we're watching a hostage tape in 4K. Blink twice if we need help.
Remember when Johnny Carson cried like a baby over Ronald Reagan getting elected? Yeah, neither do I. And you know why he didn't? Because his wife didn't keep his balls in a Tupperware container next to a box of tofu burgers. But the killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a penis. Love you, Bruce.
When Jimmy Kimmel isn't delivering another sad boy monologue, he's pandering, hard, desperately trying to prove he's still one of the people. All while broadcasting from a studio that costs more per day than most Americans make in a year. You can't claim to be relatable while framed by LED walls, backed by $1 million wardrobe team. Jimmy's idea of struggle? Losing an Emmy to Colbert. That's not hardship. That's Hollywood heartbreak. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld is playing a completely different game and winning. He doesn't pander. He provokes. He doesn't care if it stings. That's what makes it real. He's not soft-wrapping jokes between apologies. He hits, then moves on. Kimmel, on the other hand, packages every punchline with a nervous little bow. Asterisk, please don't cancel me. I'm one of the good guys. Asterisk, that's not comedy. That's a legal disclaimer, in a suit. And so here we are, watching Jimmy Kimmel fade into background like an outdated iTunes screensaver. A once funny guy now devoting more energy to performing morality than making people laugh. He's not edgy. He's not funny. He's not even memorable anymore. He's just there, blinking, smiling, and softly begging us to remember when he used to be cool. Spoiler alert, we don't. Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't destroy Jimmy Kimmel. They didn't have to. Jimmy's been doing that job just fine on his own, one tired monologue at a time. All they did was hold up a mirror, and what stared back wasn't a late-night legend. It was a faded echo of what used to be funny.
Jimmy's career peaked with busty girls on trampolines. Now the only boob we see is him. He once co-hosted The Man Show. Now he's sobbing like he just watched Steel Magnolias 3 days into his menstrual cycle.
That reflection in the mirror? Worn out, painfully predictable, and just a couple flat jokes away from full-blown irrelevance. But hey, maybe, just maybe, there's still a comeback arc buried somewhere deep in Jimmy Kimmel's script pile. Maybe he'll snap out of it, ditch the doom and gloom routine, and actually remember how to tell a joke again. Or maybe he'll do what he does best. Tear up on cue and call a season finale. Because at this point, crime might be the most consistent segment on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Now streaming everywhere, sadness is mistaken for substance. Let's be honest. Jimmy's not even phoning it in anymore. He's texting from a Malibu wine bar, sipping a chilled glass of tears of the common man. He wants to act like he's one of us, while posing for selfies with celebrities who haven't seen a grocery store since flip phones were a thing. And those punchlines? So dry and crusty, they belong in the snack aisle, vacuum sealed and shelf stable. Yet there he goes, pacing that stage like he just reinvented both comedy and compassion in one breath. Spoiler alert, he didn't do either. He just slapped a sad filter on sarcasm and rebranded it as political commentary. Oh, and please, no encore.
Blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a spooky time.
And let's not forget Oprah in a fat suit.
15 minutes a day is all you need to get your heart rate up to where...
Please, Miss Oprah, you're crushing my... Sorry, Miss Oprah.
Cue the dramatic piano music. Miss Oprah, I'm sorry I tried, but this isn't an Oscar speech. It's just Jimmy Kimmel trying to convince the world he still matters. Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't expose some shocking scandal. They just said what everyone's already thinking. Jimmy Kimmel has officially become the television equivalent of kale. Dry, bitter, and force-fed audiences by people who swear it's good for you, even though no one asked. Sure, they say kale is healthy, asterisk allegedly asterisk, but just like Jimmy, it's a chore to sit through and somehow still gets praised by people who pretend to love it. Not because they do, but because saying otherwise might make them seem uncultured. Same with Kimmel. People laugh not because it's funny, but because they feel like they're supposed to. And that's the real kicker. Any laughs he still manages to get aren't coming from genuine comedy, but from ideological agreement. That's not humor. That's groupthink with a laugh track. It's like clapping for a speech you didn't hear just to seem polite. No punchlines. No surprises. Just permission slips disguised as satire. Let's be honest. This isn't comedy. It's obligation with cue cards.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are of the left, that's fine.
The last time Jimmy Kimmel made people genuinely laugh without immediately issuing a post-joke apology was probably sometime during the Bush years. Since then, it's been a slow, self-serious slide into moral lectures dressed up as monologues, all delivered with the enthusiasm of a college professor trying too hard to relate to freshmen. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld is pulling real numbers by doing something radical, actually telling jokes. Megyn Kelly's calling out the fake deep shtick, ripping off the mask. And Jimmy? He's still stuck hosting his nightly TED Talk, with guilt-laced chuckles and all the warmth of a public service announcement. If this is the future of late-night TV, we might as well dim the lights, kiss it gently on the forehead, and let it slip into a soft, self-congratulatory coma. Nighty-night, Jimmy. Try not to sob too loud. Some of us are still laughing, just not at your show. Because comedy was never meant to be a group hug for fragile feelings or a glorified lecture in disguise. It's supposed to rattle cages, hit nerves, and, most importantly, make people laugh, even when it stings a little. Somewhere between the A-list interviews and dramatic pauses, Jimmy Kimmel lost that spark. He traded punchlines for pity, jokes for judgment. Now he's stuck playing the velvet glove moral guardian, handing out homework like it's primetime gold. But the game has changed. The mic is moving. The real voices? They're louder, sharper, funnier, unfiltered, unafraid, and done begging for approval from the media elite. These are the voices bringing comedy back to life. Raw, reckless, actually entertaining. So here's to leaving behind the fake tears and flat monologues. The stage is too damn big for another Jimmy pity party. The crowd wants grit, truth, and punchlines that actually land, not a therapist in a suit with a teleprompter. If you're done with late-night lullabies, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and don't miss what's next. Because real comedy doesn't apologize, it punches back. See you in the next round.